Robert was explained to us in the first part of this discussion the skills that you need as an economic development professional or practitioner. First, you need to know that you are a facilitator, and when you are engaging with private sector actor, the new set of skills or separate set of skills that you need to have. He explained that in the first part of this discussion. In this second part, what I really want to try and focus on is on investment. Towards the end of the last or the first part of this discussion, we were talking about business cases and investment. So I want to see how we can build that up by explaining what a business case is, explaining the elements of a business case and what is the work that needs to be done in order to have a business case and what makes a good business case and a bad business case. I hope that's not too much and we can condense that
Yeah,
into your answer.
I think I'll try my best to
Yes.
to yeah to explain that. Thank you again, viewers. I think in my experience, um, when we start our economic development projects in the various shapes and forms, we normally start with a market assessment. And the market assessment, in most cases, has broad objectives. You have the poverty reduction objective, and then you have also the objective to look at the core market where you would be intervening. So you have like two. I would in my experience I call them two kind of data that you collect. For the development of the business case, you really going to use a lot of the data that you collect from the core market. So, because the business case has to demonstrate that there is an opportunity, either the opportunity is arising because of a need which is not being solved in the market, or um, there is a service or product that is addressing that need, but not entirely the way the market wants it to. So it can be entirely absent or it's present in the market. The solution in terms of a product or service is present, but it's not in the shape or form that the market desires that it should be. So that's the first thing. And you get that data from the demand quantification study that you do, either through literature review, but you then need to go on the ground and back it up by speaking to the clients who are going to get that product. If the product is, let's say, improved seeds, then you really speak to the farmers who buy this improved seed and try to quantify what type of improved seed do they buy, how much do they buy, when do they buy. So when you speak to a significant number of farmers in the market, in your market assessment, then that starts to give you a good quantification in terms of the demand side. And then you also need to speak to the suppliers and understand what they supply, how much they supply, and when they supply, and also why there is a gap between what they're supplying and what the market is demanding. Because then when you understand that why, then it helps you to answer how of the business case. Now, when you do that, that information is not actionable. So, what a private sector actor would do if you gave them that information is to, again, I mentioned in the first segment, go into a financial model. A financial model is a good start to show that, if I supply, let's say, 5 tons of this seed, I stand to make this amount of money based on the cost scenarios because these are the costs that I'm going to make to supply that, and these are the kind of materials that are required. So that comes in the financial model. Now, so that's why the financial model becomes a very important first start. But once you've modeled it in the financial model and it tells you that when you supply 5 times, you will make, let's say, 15 million shillings. So to the private sector actor, that becomes interesting. But you don't just need to supply 5 tons of what you've been supplying. You need to supply 5 tons of perhaps a tweaked product. Let's say you are packaging in a 20 kilo pack, but the market needs 5 kilo pack. Now, in terms of material for packing, you will order a 5 kilo material, 5 kilo pack perhaps takes more material than a 20 kilo pack. Now that comes into the cost segment of your financial model. So how much of the 5 pack material do I need to order, and how much does it how much is that in terms of cost, as opposed to the 20 kilo pack that I was doing? Now, sometimes you find that when you put the 5 kilo pack there, the outcome is not favorable. Or you won't make a profit, or you will make a loss, or you will make a profit after 3 years.
Right.
Now, all that detail, you need it to be packed into the business case.
Right.
When that is done, then you come into the strategy part, right? Right now, you don't have an actor who supplies the 5 kilo pack.
Right.
So you need to first go and convince the manufacturer of the packaging
Right.
material.
Right.
Now that manufacturer again might need another business case to show that when I start making a 5 kilo pack other than a 20 kilo pack, I have a customer that needs it, and I'm going to make money.
Right.
So the strategy is convincing the private sector actor that the supplier of the 5 kilo pack is there. The customers who need this 5 kilo pack of seed are there.
Right.
So that's what you answer in the strategy part. So your business case should have the strategy part and then the hardcore finance part.
Right.
And when these two parts of the business case connect, then you have a business case which is sellable.
Right.
But most times when I see in economic development projects or market systems projects, we answer the strategy part quite well,
But not the financial.
part. Right. And then you have a business case which is disconnected.
Right.
And you don't see the reaction you want to see from the investor.
Right.
So that is very crucial information, which then can make the investor to act. Of course, you can't have a completely 100% foolproof business case.
Right.
The conversation that you have with the actor enriches the business case, because they ask you questions that can make you refine the business case.
Right.
But the business case needs to be at a point that can interest the actor to have that conversation with you.
Fantastic. I mean, thank you very much. I don't think you can be clearer in that description of the business case. But the question I want to ask is, how do we do this as economic development practitioners? Do we do this before we engage with the private sector actor? Or do we do some of this together with the private sector actor? Because there's always a tension between the preparedness that we need to be as economic development professionals before we go and engage with a private sector actor. So it sounds like most of the things that you just talked about are things that we should have done before we begin to engage. Would that be correct?
Correct.
Excellent. So does that then mean that the type of people that we employ in economic development is slightly different from what we used to employ? Would you say that's true?
Yeah, I would say that first of all, I think these skills are learnable.
Right.
So you can have a team that, let's say, have good facilitators, but maybe are lacking a bit on the hard skills that I explained. So depending on the learning attitude of the team, they can learn the skills. But in my case, I had to take academic courses to give me the rigor, these skills at a rigor which would give me the confidence. Because how much of a good business case you can develop for a private sector determines your value. And if the team has the learning attitude to really invest in learning, then I think you can, improve the team that you have. But if you have a team that is not as keen in learning, then you may need to get various members of the team with various skills. So that is a hard question, but I think various managers really will handle it in various forms. But I must emphasize that the team members must have the investment plan because these are very, very hard skills and very difficult sometimes. And so if the team are busy and they are not that invested to learn these new skills, then I think they may become frustrated as opposed to being excited with the prospect of what new skills can deliver for them.
So can I ask you, what you said you did a course?
Yes.
So what type of course did you do, and what type of course would you recommend to practitioners right now? Because it appears that the trend in economic development is towards really practitioners behaving like venture capitalists. Um, First of all, would you agree with that? And secondly,
Yes.
what would be the course, the type of courses, or in the areas that people can really pursue, so they can be as rigorous as you're suggesting?
In my case, I did an MBA that was focused on entrepreneurship development.
Right.
But I think you can get the skills. Right now, learning is really decentralized. Any course that is going to give you the skills to plan, to implement, to grow a venture is the kind of course that you need. Because as you rightly put it, you need people who understand venture capital and have the skill sets to manage, the process quite well. So whether it comes in the form of an MBA or it comes in the form of a short course that gives you specific elements of these skills like business plan development, financial modeling,
Yep.
I think I wouldn't have a specific prescription. As long as it gives you these skills, then that is the right course for
Course.
you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I was just checking the time, but I think we can go for a few more minutes. Now it's about the skills. We as practitioners, um, some of us are obsessed with the structure or the template that's been given to us by market system development approach. And some of the frustrations that I've learned over the years is the narrow view we take of market systems. And now we have people that really are working to suggest that market systems in itself is not an appropriate or even useful approach for economic development. Um, what side of the debate are you on that? And if you're on the whichever side you're on, what would you say are the things that we need to do to improve our perception of market systems as an approach, market system development as an approach, and what are the things that are happening now that is either moving us away from market systems as an approach, market system development as an approach, or that's enhancing market systems development as an approach?
That's a good question. I think, in my view, um, I think market systems for me is still a really strong approach, except that it really depends on the person who is implementing and how the person can figure out at what stage the market is in. In some cases, like it's mentioned in market systems, you either need to do a hard touch or a light touch.
Right.
And the cases that I've been explaining are cases that require you to really have a hard touch. And a hot touch, I don't know, those days we had grinding mills that you really have to crank up, yeah? So you need to crank it before the engine starts to run.
Yes.
And I think the hard touch really is to crank up the engine of the market. Because if you don't have the right density of actors, then that market systems will not start, so to speak. First of all, I wouldn't want to say that I perhaps have the experience to explicitly answer that question. But what I feel is that both approaches are actually complementary because I've also done entrepreneurship ecosystem development, which is very similar. It's still systems, and this is the point. I think the common denominator is that you need to take a systems view, whether it's a systems view to developing um, private sector entities, or it's a systems view to enhancing the entire market system. You, you don't act in isolation. These actors are not in, don't operate in isolation. So the common denominator I pick is that whether you're doing economic development market systems, you really need to take a systems perspective for you to have impact, but also sustainability. Um, at some point, also, I think these concepts become quite fuzzy, and that's because, in my view, I feel we are intervening in a market space, and so it's not as crystal clear. It's not as black and white. Um, so I think depending on whether you need to do a light touch or a heavy touch, again, you have to make the decision that will make you grow the actors that you are going to require for the market. Venture capital is all about building private sector entities that understand that it's not necessarily about the bottom line only. Now you're talking about the triple bottom line. And the triple bottom line does not necessarily stop you from making money. In fact, it enhances you to make more money. So for me, that's what I take venture capital, the role of venture capital as. And then when you have these entities, then these entities feed into your market systems because there are players that you just need to have a light touch on to deliver the kind of impact that you want. I hope this is clear because
No, it
sometimes
certainly
it's
is.
fuzzy.
No. It certainly is clear.
Yeah.
I like the way you deliberately avoid being on one side of the no, but it is true though. It's a difficult area, and my view is that private sector engagement, especially the way it's evolving with some of the things that we talked about, for us to recognize that traditionally we don't have those sort of skills, and we need to go and get those skills. The skills to first of all be able to do proper market assessment that appeals to private sector. We need to understand financial modeling. We need to know how to develop a business case and how to sell that business case to a private sector actor. These are not traditional development skills. So I think, in my view, I think all of that, if we can find a way to put all the skills into market systems approach, it enhances it, it makes it better, and it doesn't. And what I like about the last thing that you said is that look, this is not a hard and fast rule. It's not a black and white situation. Uh, this would enhance market systems in ways that doesn't make it seem like it's a straight jacket, that we only have to tick boxes of steps and we have delivered market systems. So, no, thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for this incredible education. I've learned a lot, and I hope you all have learned from our discussion here. And we'll bring Robert back to talk to us about his own career and how he got into economic development, hopefully to inspire a whole lot more of us. Thank you very much for watching, and we will see you next time.
Thank you.